CJ Stroud is reportedly done with the NFL, or at least that's what fans are speculating after his latest press conference on contract talks involving CJ Stroud, after the Houston Texans delayed his long-term deal while paying another teammate big money. Stroud said he has already held up his end of the bargain, but behind closed doors, he gave an ultimatum to team executives that could trigger a massive trade before the season. Heading into his fourth season with the Texans, CJ Stroud said at OTAs that he feels as if he's done his part to earn an extension, but that his focus is set on the season and not the new contract. That is the quote. That is the moment. And if you think it sounds calm and diplomatic, you are missing everything underneath it. I let my agent handle that. If it's time to do it, then it is. Stroud said on Thursday, "My job is football. That's what I'm focused on. Just getting better. I think I've held my bargain up. Whatever happens, happens." Read that again. Whatever happens, happens. That is not the language of a man who is desperate. That is not someone begging for job security. That is someone who has decided consciously, publicly, and deliberately to put the ball back in the Texans' court and walk away from the table. A rough end to last season has been seen as a possible reason for slow playing a long-term deal, but Stroud is not accepting that narrative. He made it crystal clear at that OTA press conference that the ball is in Houston's hands, not his. The Texans' Pro Bowl quarterback, whose fifth-year option for 2027 was picked up in April, is eligible for an extension for the first time since arriving in 2023 as the second overall pick. That means this is the first real moment where a long-term deal could land on the table. And instead of sprinting toward it with open arms, Stroud shrugged his shoulders and said he is focused on football. ESPN's DJ Ben Aim reports there have yet to be serious extension talks at this point, so while Stroud is calling himself focused on the field, the front office is not exactly racing to lock him in either. The silence from the negotiating room is almost as loud as Stroud's words at the podium. Stroud said he is excited to be a Texan this year and will go from there. The Texans have advanced to the playoffs and won a game in each of Stroud's 3 seasons, which is less than some other quarterbacks who have landed long-term deals have done to open their careers. It hasn't been enough to make Stroud's deal the top priority in Houston, however, and Stroud may need to show even more in year 4 to ensure that he's with the Texans for the long run. There it is, the real story. A quarterback who walked into Houston and immediately turned a franchise around. And now, 3 years later, still has no guarantee of a future there. Stroud's rough campaign led to an inquisition of his future from the Houston media this offseason. But by all accounts, the club is committed to their starting QB the last 3 years running. The word committed is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because what the Texans have not done is put any money behind that commitment. As the Texans continued with their offseason program, Stroud addressed the media for the first time since the 2025 season officially ended, fielding questions about those personal changes and, more importantly, his future with the Texans. Stroud is under contract through the 2027 season, but he has not received an extension. Stroud is still operating under the fully guaranteed 4-year $36.279 million contract he signed as a rookie in 2023. When you consider where the quarterback market sits right now, that number is not just a bargain, it is practically a giveaway, and Stroud knows it. He did his part. He said so publicly. Now the question the whole NFL is asking is, what is Houston waiting for? To understand why this contract standoff is as explosive as it is, you need to understand what CJ Stroud brought to Houston in the first place, and what kind of player the Texans were asking to accept being undervalued. Coleridge Bernard Stroud IV, born October 3, 2001, is an American professional football quarterback for the Houston Texans of the National Football League. He is 24 years old. He is the franchise, or at least he was supposed to be. He played college football for the Ohio State Buckeyes, where he holds several school records, including most passing yards in a single game with 573, as well as being the first player to throw for 6 touchdowns 3 times. Stroud was a Heisman Trophy finalist in 2021 and 2022, and was subsequently selected by the Houston Texans 2nd overall in the 2023 NFL Draft. Being selected 2nd overall, Stroud became the highest drafted quarterback in Ohio State's history. That is not a small detail. Ohio State has produced a conveyor belt of NFL quarterbacks: Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, Joe Burrow's college rival, and none of them went higher than Stroud. In desperate need to rebuild after parting ways with Deshaun Watson and going 3-13-1 in 2022, the Texans hired a new coach and recruited aggressively, which led to one of the biggest turnarounds not only in the franchise's history, but in the league's history as well. Stroud was the centerpiece of that turnaround. Everything flowed through him. The No. 2 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Stroud had one of the best seasons ever for an NFL rookie quarterback, leading the Texans to an AFC South title and the divisional round of the playoffs, just 1 year after they won only 3 games. That turnaround, from 3 wins to divisional round in 12 months, is one of the most jaw-dropping single-season flips in NFL history, and Stroud was the engine behind it. Stroud led the Texans to the playoffs his rookie season, passing for more than 40 yards with a 23-5 TD ratio. A 23-5 touchdown to interception ratio as a rookie, in a league that chews up first-year quarterbacks and spits them out before Thanksgiving. He led the league in passing yards per game with 273.9. He also set multiple rookie quarterback records, including the most passing yards in a single game by a rookie, when he threw for 470 yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Pro Football Writers of America named the former Ohio State quarterback as both the NFL Rookie of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year, in recognition of his record-setting first season with the Houston Texans. The city of Houston had not seen an offensive player like this in years. Stroud was not just meeting expectations. He was rewriting what was possible. For a first-year signal caller, fans were calling him the franchise. Analysts were calling him a top 10 quarterback in the league. Comparisons to the great ones started surfacing. And then the calendar turned to 2024, and the first cracks appeared. Stroud exceeded expectations in his stellar rookie campaign back in 2023, but he then followed that up with a down season in 24, in which he threw more than twice as many interceptions, 12-5, and got sacked 52 times. The pressure on the offensive line, the injuries, the regression in decision-making under pressure. Fans started whispering, media started asking questions, and the Texans' front office, quietly, cautiously, started hedging its bets. The 2025 season was supposed to be the reset, the bounce back, the year that silenced every critic who had spent 2024 wondering whether the rookie version of CJ Stroud was real or whether it was an anomaly built on the shoulders of a brand new, unprepared defense that nobody had film on yet. It did not go as planned. Across 14 regular season appearances in 2025, Stroud threw for 341 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, the lowest TD and yardage totals of his career to date. 3,000 yards in 14 games, yes. But still, the trajectory was pointing in the wrong direction. From 40+ yards and a 23-5 ratio in 2023, to 12 interceptions in 2024, to career low production in 2025. The line on the graph was not ambiguous. Stroud was sidelined for a sizable chunk of the 2025 season due to a concussion, and when he returned, he was unable to look like the best version of himself, putting up a rough stat line in the wildcard round against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then turning in one of the worst playoff performances in recent NFL history against the Patriots. The concussion piece is not a throwaway detail. Stroud nearly missed a month's worth of games in 2025 due to a concussion suffered in Week 9 against the Denver Broncos. Add those to the 2 that he missed for a previous concussion, suffered in Week 14 against the New York Jets in 2023. And you have 5 total games missed in 3 seasons of play. While Houston has gone 4-1 in games where Stroud missed time, the reality is their potential 10-year plan at quarterback has already suffered multiple significant blows to his brain before turning 25 years old. That's not a recipe for a long career in the NFL, and the Texans know that. That is the piece that nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone in the building is thinking about. When you're building a franchise around one man's arm and one man's brain, and that man has had his brain rattled multiple times in 3 years, the calculus starts to shift. But before the Texans even had to think about that, they had to survive January 2026. Stroud left a bad taste in Houston's mouth when he imploded in the AFC divisional round against the New England Patriots, where he threw 4 interceptions and was sacked 3 times. Stroud's 4 picks were the most of any game of his career, with his dismal 28.0 passer rating standing as his worst. 28. That is not a bad game. That is a historically bad game, and it came on the biggest stage Stroud had stood on, a divisional round matchup in Foxborough. As one analyst put it, Stroud's 2-game stat line in the 2025 postseason is arguably the worst in NFL history for a quarterback. Former Steelers star Le'Veon Bell was among the voices that erupted on social media. Bell took to X during the wild card game itself, requesting Stroud to be investigated. That is the kind of noise that follows a player into the offseason, that sits on the front page of every sports website, and that plants seeds of doubt in the minds of front offices that were already watching closely. It was a talking point discussed ad nauseum since the final whistle of the Texans' 28-16 loss in Foxborough back in January, and Stroud had to carry every single one of those headlines into the 2026 offseason, heading into the most important contract summer of his professional life. Here's where the story gets complicated, because while CJ Stroud's performance numbers were sliding, the quarterback market across the NFL was doing the opposite. It was exploding upward at a pace that nobody could fully keep up with. For context, Justin Herbert is the 8th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, at $52.5 million per season. Chiefs QB Patrick Mahomes comes in 12th place, at $45 million per season. Think about that for a second. Patrick Mahomes, 4 Super Bowl appearances, multiple MVP awards, generational talent, is 12th on the quarterback pay scale. That is how inflated this market has become. And CJ Stroud, who just turned 24, with an Offensive Rookie of the Year award, 3 straight playoff appearances, and 2 division titles on his resume, is still on his rookie deal. One rival NFL executive recently suggested a contract offer for Stroud that they believe he would reject. Offer him something like top 8 to 12 QB money. An NFC executive said, "I'd try to give him a 3-year extension at like $42.45 million per year now, or plan to franchise him out like Dallas Cowboys QB Dak Prescott in 2020. For context, Justin Herbert is the 8th highest paid quarterback in the NFL at $52.5 million per season, $42 to $45 million per year. That number would put Stroud below Mahomes on the pay scale. And that same rival executive predicted Stroud's camp would reject it. That same executive believes that Stroud's team, led by agent David Malugeta, would reject that offer. The executive said they would be willing to increase the offer in order to get a deal done. But if that failed, the Texans can always use the franchise tag on Stroud if needed during the 2028 offseason. David Malugeta, that name matters. He is one of the most powerful agents in football, and he represents some of the highest paid players in the game. The idea that Malugeta is going to sit at a table and accept top 12 money for his client, a player who just turned 24 and won Offensive Rookie of the Year, is a fantasy. Meanwhile, the Texans were spending just not on Stroud. The Texans already extended fellow 2023 draft pick and All-Pro defensive end Will Anderson Jr. earlier this offseason, making him the highest paid non-QB in the league on a 3-year deal worth $150 million. Highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And the quarterback, the player who has made every other investment on that roster more valuable, is still on a rookie deal, watching his teammates sign a $150 million contract while his own negotiation sits in silence. Irrespective of general manager Nick Caserio throwing his front office weight behind the Stroud reclamation project, Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated has raised his own personal doubts that Stroud can come through under heavy pressure. I'd say CJ Stroud, just because he's had a 2-year downturn after an incredible rookie year, and that Texans team is loaded everywhere and very ready to compete for a championship. Breer replied to a question on what quarterback he felt was under the most pressure. If Houston decides to wait on doing a second contract with him, then the pressure's only turned up another notch. All that's part of the territory, though. When you've shown the potential that Stroud has, the pressure turned up another notch. That is the business reality of what is happening here. Stroud standing at that podium and saying whatever happens is not indifference. It is a calculated posture from a player and an agent who understand exactly how leverage works. So where does this story go? Because everything about the CJ Stroud situation, the declining numbers, the nightmare playoff exits, the stalled contract talks, the public pressure, all of it is either the beginning of the end or the setup for one of the great bounce-back stories in recent NFL history. And the Texans, for their part, are betting on the latter. The Texans made several moves this offseason to reimagine a leaky offensive line that might have caused Stroud to struggle the past 2 seasons. Houston traded Juice Scruggs to the Detroit Lions and Titus Howard to the Cleveland Browns, and added Braden Smith and Wyatt Teller via free agency. That is a complete overhaul of the protection in front of their quarterback. They also gave Stroud more protection on the offensive line by signing Braden Smith and 3-time Pro Bowler Wyatt Teller as new starters. 3-time Pro Bowler. The Texans went out and found a veteran, proven guard and dropped him into the interior of an offensive line that had been exposing Stroud to pressure for 2 years straight. Positive action quickly morphed into spending extensively to retool the offensive line, and the nice move to add a proven starting running back in David Montgomery from the Detroit Lions. David Montgomery, experienced, physical, a back who takes pressure off a quarterback and keeps defenses from pinning their ears back on every third down. That is not a coincidence. That is an organization that looked at everything that went wrong for their quarterback and wrote checks to fix it. To be fair, Stroud has helped lead the franchise to back-to-back AFC South titles, 3 consecutive AFC playoff berths, and 3 straight AFC divisional playoff rounds. He did this while enduring the hiring, firing, and more hiring of 2 rookie offensive coordinators, in Bobby Slowick and now Nick Caley, respectively. Additionally, he's had to perform in spite of one of the most volatile offensive line units in the entire NFL. All things considered, Stroud has been set up to fail in almost every significant way on the offensive side of the football. That context does not wipe the slate clean. 4 interceptions in a divisional round game is 4 interceptions in a divisional round game. But it does reframe the last 2 years in a way that is fair to the player. Stroud has been asked to win games behind a compromised line, with rotating offensive coordinators, while absorbing concussions that took him off the field for stretches at a time. This offseason was built around Stroud improving his body and mind. He added muscle, cut his hair, and spent ample time working on the little details of his craft to better the chances of being viewed as the long-term quarterback. Teammates have taken notice of the improvements in physique as he's entering a critical year for his career. The haircut became its own controversy. One thing fans noticed this offseason is that quarterback CJ Stroud cut his hair, and recently, the former number 2 overall pick broke down what went into that decision. I was told people thought I was depressed. I wasn't. I was thinking about cutting my hair for a long time. Nothing too serious. The fact that people read depression into a haircut tells you everything about the temperature of the conversation around Stroud heading into 2026. Every move he makes is being parsed and analyzed through the lens of whether he is mentally ready to carry this franchise. Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans told reporters that he's proud of the work Stroud's put in so far this offseason. CJ has done a really great job all offseason of just continuing to be locked in, continuing to prepare the right way. Ryans said, "He's been dialed in to our strength sessions, coaching sessions, and our meetings. I'm just grateful for the suffering," Stroud said. Not only the suffering that people don't see, but also the suffering that people also do see. That is the quote that should frame everything. Not "I'm done," not "pay me," not "I deserve better." Grateful for the suffering. That is the mindset of someone who has looked at the hardest stretch of his professional life and decided to use it as fuel instead of baggage. The rival executive warned the Texans about not having a quarterback situation like the Vikings. Minnesota does not know if J.J. McCarthy is the future of the organization or not, hence their move to bring in Kyler Murray. They should do whatever they can to avoid ending up looking like Minnesota. The same NFC executive said, "That is the warning. Get this done, or risk watching one of the youngest, most talented quarterbacks in the league develop into a monster somewhere else, on somebody else's money, for somebody else's playoff run. Now it's coming time on that schedule to extend the QB so that the others can get planned for. If that QB might not be the guy, Houston needs to know quickly. If Stroud eyes the guy, they need to get that extension done. Unfortunately, there's too much uncertainty right now. This year, unfortunately, is necessary to telegraph that, both to Stroud and to the Texans. 2026 is it. The verdict year. The season that answers the question that the entire NFL has been asking since that night in Foxborough. Is CJ Stroud the real thing, or was 2023 the outlier? The Texans have surrounded him with better protection, a running game, receivers who are continuing to develop. The case for Stroud to rebound relies on projecting wideouts Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel to take a step forward in year 2, alongside number WR Nico Collins, and potentially also for Tank Dell to resume producing after missing all of 2025. In the days and weeks since the playoff flop, Stroud has received support and backing from teammates such as Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz. Very few quarterbacks are privileged enough to have the extremely talented teammates and very willing support network. Stroud has been so graciously afforded once again in Houston. So if there was ever a moment for the Texans quarterback to prove he really is the signal caller of the future, the time is now. CJ Stroud standing at that podium and saying whatever happens, happens was not a white flag. It was a declaration. He has done his part. He said so. The Texans need to decide if they believe him, and the 2026 season is going to answer that question in real time, in front of the entire country, with the biggest contract of his life sitting at the end of the road. The title of this video asked if CJ Stroud is done with the NFL. The answer, based on everything we just walked through, is the opposite. He is not done with the NFL. He is done letting the contract noise distract him from the work. And if the Texans are not careful, if they let another underwhelming offer hit the table, or let another year tick off without getting serious, CJ Stroud might just do the most dangerous thing a young quarterback can do: prove everybody wrong, and do it as a free agent.